Okay, welcome to week 3 of business plan development. This is Steve Burho, your instructor. What we're going to cover tonight are 3 chapters. That's going to be the operations, technology, and management. And then we'll start on the spreadsheet. And I'll show you how to access it, and then the 2 tabs that you'll be required to complete this time. And then you send me your entire spreadsheet as the part of the assignment. So we'll go ahead and get started. And the first thing is operations. And what operations are, operations is the day-to-day function of your company. You know, it's not enough to have an idea. We were talking about that today. There are companies out there like Quirky, Quirky, that will take your idea and run with it. They every week they review submissions of people's ideas, and then they try to prototype them during the week. And if they put them in front of focus groups, and if they like them, they'll take them to manufacturing. They have manufacturers all over the world that they have lined up, and if it works, great. They'll pay you about 5 to 7% of the profits for coming up with the idea, but they get to keep the rest of the money. Now, yeah, you didn't build an operation around it, but you made a little extra money. There's a lot of people that have lots of ideas, but no way to actually try to get them to work. And so there are groups like Quirky and Make It, and I'm sure there's some others out there that'll. I know there's one called Invent Help, which does the same thing. But Quirky is the one that I've seen. It's unfortunately Quirky has not been real good at picking winners. They've had to go through a bankruptcy, but they've kind of gotten their feet back under them. So we'll see how those things, how it works with them. So in our case, we have to think about what is it that we need to do to convince the reader that you know what you're doing, and that's putting a company together. So they're going to want to know where you are, what it is you do, and what it is you produce. So that's pretty much what we're telling them in this chapter. So we start with the pitch, and again, we do that because the investors, in most cases, have people, and so they're going to take your business plan apart and give it to people to review. And so we, instead of them having to copy your company overview and give it to them in addition to the chapter, everything's right there. So in a paragraph, you're giving them all the meat of what it is you're trying to do. And that's the who, what, where, when, why, and how. And that's your start with the pitch. And again, it's the same in every chapter. It sounds repetitive, but a couple of people had asked, well, am I using the same thing over and over? Yes, but you're applying it to the particular chapter. So in this case, we're just kind of giving them an overview of what you're doing. And then we need to get into your location and facilities, because you have to have an office. Now, to set up your company, you have to have a resident agent. That person has to be in the state where you incorporate. So think about where your office is going to be. Now, we're talking about your headquarters now, not this, because you can incorporate in a state and not actually have a presence there other than an office for your mail. But we're talking about where you're going to operate out of, because I know we had set up one of our companies in Nevada, mostly to avoid some taxes, and you don't have as many reporting requirements. So if you have somebody that doesn't want their name attached, you can use other states that don't require you to provide a lot of information. And we ended up having to do that with one company. But if you incorporate in Florida, you just need a Florida address. But again, think about where your headquarters are going to be. So if you're going to locate in Florida, you need to have a physical address, and you have to have one anyway for your resident agent. And they don't let you use post office boxes, because the the government, if they have an inquiry about your company, or if you've done something wrong and they want to find you, they have to have a location where they can reach you and deliver papers that have to be signed for. And so they require you to have a physical presence. And so you can use your home or an apartment. The only way I've been able to get around with actually having to have a physical office has been to use mailboxes, etc., which is now the UPS store. And they give you a street address. Like I had one that was 4250 Alafaya Trail, and then it said Suite 212 dash, and then I had a box inside of their office. Now, they are allowed to sign for your company. You've basically given them the right to sign for papers that come in. Whether it's a summons or a lawsuit, they can actually sign for you. And so you have to be careful. If you don't want that to happen, you don't want to give them that authority. But they can accept it for the company. Otherwise, they would have to find an officer of the company if it's in a different location than that. And so you have to think about, what does it need to be? And what I like for you to do is to at least put in money that it would take for a commercial piece of property where you're going to be located. I gave you a link to loopnet.com, which is a commercial website, which will give you an idea of what it costs per square foot. Because again, the investors are going to be expecting you to show your cost per square foot. Why? Because that's kind of the way they think. And again, you have to use their terminology. You can't just say, well, I have an apartment, my rent's $1,000 a month, so I'm going to use that. But the thing is you don't use it all for the company. And one thing they like to know is, how much room do you actually need to operate? So if you can do it in a bedroom that's 10 by 10, you're looking at 100 square feet. Again, 10 by 10, multiply those two numbers together, gives you your square feet. So you say, okay, I need 100 square feet to operate my business. So now you can go onto LoopNet and look at office space. It's in Orlando, it's about $25 a square foot. So and $20 to $25 a square foot. So you can say, okay, it's going to cost about $2,500 a year. Because again, when they give you the price online, it's usually for the entire year. So you're looking at $2,500 for the year. So again, it's not that much money, a couple $100 a month to rent a bedroom. And we like for you to have at least the price of a commercial space in the business plan. Because if something were to happen and you couldn't operate out of your home, you needed the bedroom for something else, or your spouse said, I'm tired of you being in here doing this, go out and rent an office, you've got the money budgeted. And that's what we're really trying to do, is just make sure you have enough money to cover it in case something were to happen and you can't operate out of your home. So the location is where you're going to planning the headquarters, facility size and cost. You have to think about how big my office is going to be. If I've got 10 people, the average business, you're going to probably need anywhere from 50 to 100 square feet per person, because that includes things like bathrooms and conference rooms and walkways, as well as where they sit. We look in a classroom, and our classrooms are about 30 to 35 square feet per person. And so in a classroom, that's fine. You can put a lot of people in there. But if you're in an office, and especially if you're going to see people, or you're going to run a recording studio, you've got a lot of room for equipment and speakers and guitars and sound systems. Think about how big this place needs to be. And again, it's not bad to, overplan, because again, if things take off, you may need more room, but budget for the money. At least for the first year, you're probably going to be correct. Most investors understand that after the first year, you're guessing anyway. So, but at least for the first year, think about, how big do you think you can get? And if you're going to have 5 employees, they're each of them are going to probably need at least 50 square feet for office space. And so you're looking at, 250 square feet. So again, then go out and say, okay, what can I rent space for? $25 a square foot. So you're not going to make me do the math. So if we looked at 25 times, clear it. 25 times 25. So we're looking at $625. So that's not too bad. Yeah, 25 to 20, that didn't sound right. But multiply your 25 square feet per person times 25, so $625 per employee. You'd have to multiply that by your 5 in order to find out what your annual rent would probably be. And again, you're budgeting for it. Now, even if you use your home, which you can do, build the space to your company, because number one, you don't want to commingle your assets, and stuff that your family's. You don't want to mix that with the family assets, so you keep them separate. That corporate veil is very important, because you don't want to have something happen to the company, have somebody say, well, here's the address of the company, that's your home. They come in and say, well, that furniture must belong to the company, or that if it's your house, the house belongs to the company. Now you're all of a sudden tied up in a lawsuit, and you can't. It's very hard to walk away with your personal stuff. So again, make sure that you treat it like a business. So location and facility size, and like I said, we can go jump into LoopNet real quick, and I'll show you what that looks like. But LoopNet is a nice website. It's easy to operate. You can look at properties for sale or for lease. Like we'll look at office space for lease in Orlando, and make sure you pick Orlando, Florida, because there's lots of Orlandos out there. And when you search, it's going to come up with properties that are for lease in the area. So you're looking, let's see, looking at downtown Orlando, you're looking at $27 a square foot per year. It's going to tell you that you can rent as the minimum amount about 1,700 square feet up to about 15,000 square feet. So let's say 2,000 square feet at $27. You're looking at to $5,400 total for the smallest space. Divide that by 12, that gives you your monthly payments. But the idea is they want to know what's it cost per square foot per year, where you want to be located. Now, this is downtown. Not everybody wants to be downtown. The one thing that's interesting is those spaces are parking spaces. So if you've got clients coming in, most cases you don't want to be downtown if they're going to be driving, because as you've probably experienced in most cities, parking's a pain. But you get 10 spaces allocated to your company. Think about it. Your employees need them, but also your clients may need them. So, ones like this Gateway Center, they give you 2 parking spaces. So you have to think about, do I need parking spaces for employees and for visitors, or what? And again, you can look through, and let's find another one that a lot of them don't like to tell you how much it is. But here on Orange downtown, you're looking at about $24, $25 a square foot. And again, as long as you're in the ballpark, I'm fine. Because you can see some of them have ranges 16 to 60. A lot of it depends on how big it is as to how much they charge, because they got to put up walls. One thing I was telling the class today is you've got, basically when you rent space, you get nothing. You get walls and a ceiling. That's about it. So not only do you have to think about how much it's going to cost for the space, but you got to put furniture in it. You got to get computers for your employees. Think about how much more you have to spend per employee. And usually it's about $3 to $5 grand for table, chairs, computer, all those things that they have to have. Even in Florida, now an office building like this, I'll bet you probably have air conditioning, but you have to think about if you're out in the boonies, a lot of those spaces aren't even air conditioned. So one thing I was talking to the class about, and again, LoopNet's great because you can look all over the United States and get some prices. You can also get for sale prices. And again, commercial space, like we were talking about in class today, commercial space is not cheap because it has to be zoned that way. Somebody's got to have that done. And if it's business property, it's worth probably 4 to 5 times what a residential property is worth. You can see here like 5 acres for $1.3 million. It's not cheap, and you're probably not going to get an investor to kick in the money anyway. So think about figure it as a lease. That's the best way to think about think about what you're going to be your commercial space. Get back into this. What was I on? Oh, I had that other spreadsheet. There it is. But again, LoopNet's a great source for this. The other thing you can do is Regus. Now, Regus is a company that rents temporary office space. I've used them in the past. I like them because they're multinational, or international. So you can if you're in the Regus system, you can use any of their offices anywhere in the world. So if you're going to be working outside of the U.S., almost every major city has a Regus office, and you just call ahead. They have a space for you, a place to work, conference rooms. They even have, they have internet and things like that you can use. And Regus is a great one if you're going to be traveling around the country, around the world, because once you're in their system, you can use any of their facilities. Yeah, they charge you for it, but hey, if you're going to a strange place, it's nice to know that there's a friendly face there, and that's what Regus gives you. We had a internet terminal company, and our franchisees were scattered all over the world. So we were in Melbourne, Australia, and Jakarta, Indonesia, and Dublin, Ireland, and London, and Tel Aviv, and Israel, and Pretoria in South Africa. And each of those places had a Regus office. So when we sent the CEO there, we said we need an office. They provided him with one in a conference room. And even when we got there, they had signage up, welcome public access technology to Pretoria. And then whoever our client was, they had their name on the sign too. So it looked like we had an office. So it was great. But again, think about where you need to be located, get an idea on commercial space, and think about how much you're gonna have to spend. Because again, that $25 a square foot, that's going to be a yearly fee, and you divide that by 12 to get your payments if you want to, and figure you're going to spend about $3 to $5 grand with your for every employee that you have. So again, that's what they want to know, is that you know how much money you're going to need, because you're going to be asking investors for this. Part of your startup costs. We'll be doing those next week. But think now, what is this going to cost me? And try to get some real numbers. Because you go into New York with LoopNet, you're going to find that for that $25 office space in Orlando, it's going to be $50 in New York, $50 to $75. Retail space gets very expensive in big cities because you've got more people that come by, and again, they based on number of people that walk by your doors, that determines how much you have to pay. They had one come up on Times Square. uh, $1,250 a square foot. Now you think about it, 1,000 square foot well, it wasn't a restaurant, but it was a retail store. You're going to pay $1.25 million a year in rent, so $100,000 a month. So you got to make lots of money just to pay your rent. So again, that's the way what it takes to do business. So think about what it costs, because yeah, in the beginning you might, one person was going to operate out of their car, but you still have to have a place to get mail. So think about how you're going to do this. And your investors are going to want to get a hold of you too. And so you need some way to get mail. Anyway, find a location, figure for corporate and for commercial rent, and try to be reasonable in the size and the costs. But again, think about also how many employees you're going to need. If you have one employee, you're probably going to need $3 to $5 grand for each one of them. If you have more than one, again, just plan on that money, because if you don't, where's it going to come from? If you don't have the money, you can't do the deal. Anyway, that's what we're asking these investors for. Describe the basics of your operation. The investors want to feel comfortable that you know what you're doing. I had a student one time who was in the music program. She got to my class. She says, "I think I want to make movies." I go, "What do you know about making movies?" "Well, nothing. It just sounds cool." I went, "That's great, but it's not making me feel warm and fuzzy when you're asking me for my money. If I don't feel you know what you're doing, because you're going to be spinning your wheels and spending my money." And so they want to make sure that you understand what are the steps it takes to, what are the major steps in doing your business. You can do an outline, just don't, you don't have to go into intimate detail. But again, what are the basic steps in doing what you do? When you're making a recording, you've got to license the music, license the lyrics. You've got to do rehearsal. You're going to have rehearsal time. You're going to have recording time. You have mixing and mastering times. That's what they want to know, is that you understand what the basic steps are. They also like to know that you have some type of efficiencies versus your competitors. That's what we're talking about here with methods for increasing your profitability. Do you have something special that you can do? Can you have a low cost location because you're going to record out of your home, or you're going to rent somebody else. I had one guy who was going to rent his friend's recording studio rather than spend the money to build his own. And the guy had first-rate equipment, but he wasn't using it at night. So he said, "Can I rent it?" And the guy said, "Sure." So again, it saved him time and money of getting set up, getting operating, but it made him more profitable. So again, you think about, and we had a guy who was doing pizza, Arizona State University. He was the pizza delivery guy between 10 at night and 6 in the morning. So he would drive around campus in a truck with hot pizzas and sell them out of his truck. But he was using his friend's pizzeria. His friend closed at 10 o'clock. He could rent it for a couple of hours to make his pizzas, stick them in his truck with a heater, and drive around campus selling slices to people off of his app. And it was cool. But he was making $1 million a year just selling slices of pizza. But he didn't have a facility. He basically had a truck and a heater, but he used his friend's pizzeria, rented his friend's pizzeria. But again, it made him more profitable. He didn't have a lot of overhead. He didn't have a lot of expense. And he had a great idea. And they couldn't keep him off campus because it was a public university. So again, think about what's your secret sauce, what's your competitive advantage. Again, focus on your strengths, things that make your company run smoothly. What are the strengths that you have, or what opportunities do you see that are coming? Or you can also weigh it against your competitors. If there's weaknesses that you've identified that you can take advantage of, tell me what those are. Ways to control costs. Not only do they want to see what you can do, they want to make sure you do it efficiently. And that's really what we're talking about here. So what time or cost efficiencies have you put into place? I had one guy, he says, look, I can turn around an album in a week where my competitors are all telling people 4 to 6 weeks. He says, but if I put my nose to the grindstone, I can get it done in a week. Well, that separates him from his competitors, and it also makes it cheaper for the client because they're going to get their product out to the market faster. But the key things they want to know is that the money they're giving you, you're thinking of them too, and that's really what it gets down to. Is they understand that you're not looking at the investor just as a piggy bank. You're looking at him as a partner, and you're going to be as efficient as possible with their money. Now on the technology side, the key thing here that we're talking about is if you don't have a lot of technology, you can combine it in your operations chapter. But if you are going to require like a lot of film equipment or audio equipment or something like that, make sure that you identify the equipment you have. The main thing they're looking for is, do you have good equipment? What is it? What kind of investment are we talking about? Because again, if you're going to need $250,000 worth of film equipment, they're going to want to know what it is that you're buying. So that's why we do a separate technology chapter. Or if you're developing an app, are you doing it? Are you buying software to do it? What are you doing to develop this? Because again, if your key of your business is technology, we like to see a separate technology chapter. But if basically what you're doing is scheduling events for people, that you could combine that in your operations. Key things I look for here is what technology you're gonna implement it with, and is it the right technology for your particular industry? We had a guy who filmed night launches of the space shuttle. Problem was, we wanted to figure out how he was going to make money with it, and we went to the film people, and they said, "What camera are you using?" Well, he had a brand new Canon video device, and he said, "Oh, I use this camera and this." He says, "I can't use it." He says, "Why not?" He says, "Your equipment's 2 years newer than any of my clients," and so you don't have to be too descriptive, David. Just again, if you tell them you're basically shooting with Canon equipment, and if you're shooting in high res, 4K or 8K. Right now, there's 8K cameras, but but again, you have to think about who your customers are going to be, and make sure that they can use what it is you produce. We have a guy here in town, Harry Brockman, and he does a lot of stuff with the local TV stations. But he says, I've got all the latest toys. The problem is they can't use it because they don't have the broadcast equipment to handle, the high, the 4K format. Now you can use that in certain locations, but if your clients can't use it, why, you can't produce in that format. Now, in his case, he had a room where he dumbed his work down, and by doing that, everybody could use it, and he could use the new toys for some clients. But the problem is you got to make money with it. So you got to think about is what can my clients use. So again, think about the technology you're going to use. Show you understand it. In other words, what is it? What am I doing with this equipment? I'm shooting in 4K for 4K channels, but there's more non-4K than there are 4K. Now I'm seeing behind UCF they're using 8K, but how many people can handle that type of format? And that's what we're talking about here. You got to make sure your clients can use it. It's not enough to have the latest toys. You also have to make sure that your clients can use what you produce. And again, you may have to buy a certain type of software that'll dumb it down to levels that they can use. But you know, there will be some that can use the higher end stuff. So again, what is your plan for implementation? You don't have to buy your equipment all at once. We had people that said, well, I want 3 recording studios. It says, well, how many clients do you have? Well, none. It says, do you need 3 right now? Well, no, I could do 1 now. I'll add, but again, you have to think about the space. If he wanted to have 3 studios, does he have to, if each of them is $250,000, does he need all 3 of them right now if he has no clients? No, as it builds, he's going to be able to add new studios. But think of the commercial space. He's got to make sure he has a big enough commercial space that he can grow into it. Otherwise, every time he needs a new studio, he's got to move everything, take everything apart, set it up again, recalibrate everything. And so again, start thinking about where you are, where you're going to be each year, so you can think about the space you need. And again, if you're happy with 1 studio, which a lot of people are, because they're going to generate a couple $100,000 a year, that's great. But if your goal is to get to 3 studios in 3 years, adding 1 a year, you need to make sure you have the space to do it. So again, those are the plans. The other thing I look at is your website. Now, we're not looking at necessarily what it does as much as how you host it and what it costs. Everybody needs a website. You may put it on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or whatever, however else you do it these days. But you got to tell me, what you're going to do and what's it going to cost to maintain it. Now people go, well, it's free. Well, not really, because you've got to spend time to develop it. So think about, am I going to have somebody do that? Am I going to allocate my time to it? What are we going to do? But again, mention the website, what it's going to do, where you're going to host it. I talk in class about, well, I could do it on my computer, but will it handle 1,000 calls if I'm going to get 1,000 calls? Most websites, you're on a slower internet connection than the big hosting companies, so you can't handle 1,000 calls. On the website, one of the shows I like to watch, Squawk Box, every time they mention a new company, they crash their website because all of a sudden 100,000 people call them. Well, they just can't handle that. So make sure that you can handle the volume you expect. Or you're going to start at home and then expand out to a server farm where you're going to pay by the gigabyte and all this stuff. But again, plan stuff. They want to see that you're not I call it one and done. You're not going to do one thing and then quit. They want to know what are your plans for the future. So again, technology, you can combine that with operations if you want to. But if technology is a key to your business, we'd like for you to talk about it separately. The third chapter is your management and operations, management and organization. So again, start with the pitch and then tell me what are your key jobs. Now, if you're going to be adding people down, just identify what jobs and when you're going to add those jobs. Now, investors are going to want at least 1 real name. And it can be you. It doesn't have to be, but you need at least 1 real person that's full-time. And we do that primarily so that when we get into the financials, we make sure that your business can at least support 1 full-time person. I know some of you want to do this on the side, but I can tell you, investors want you to be full, all in on this company, all in on this business. So Identify your key positions. Investors are going to want you to have at least one full-time person. So pick the job that's going to be full-time, and watch terminology, because if you use the chief like CEO and things like that, they're going to be expecting you to be a corporation. Now, on an LLC, you can use president or managing member. Try not to use chief because it bothers them. I have had people use chief in their LLCs, which, again, they don't tell you can't, but they're expecting whenever they see CEO that you're a corporation. So try not to use it if you're an LLC. And it's just, again, it's a terminology thing. The For population, but populate it with people. But the one thing I tell people is make sure that you have their permission. The reason is because these business plans sometimes will take on a life of their own. In other words, all of a sudden, uh, and again, most of them will not sign an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement with it. So they might give it to their friends. Well, if their friends are the bosses of your friends, and they say, oh, well, Joe's going to leave me if this goes through, it might get Joe in trouble. So make sure that he knows that anybody's real name you put in there, they know it. Now, you can put in name will be disclosed upon request, which means they sign an NDA. But I can tell you most investors won't first pass. So again, don't put a name in here unless you have their permission. Same thing goes for lawyers, accountants. Today, in these highly political days, you want to be very careful to use names properly, because people get mad at you and they attack people if their names show up somewhere where they shouldn't be. They were talking about, what was it? Well, there was one. It was a restaurant in Texas that Jeff Sessions went to, the Secretary of State, and Twitterverse attacked him. The guy had to bring his website down because he was getting all these negative reviews just because he served somebody from a different political party. So you got to be very careful these days, and because people will attack people for anything. So again, make sure that people know if their names are in your plan. And again, everything, including your officers, board, everybody. So again, put people in. I need at least one real name, because again, without a real name, investors will go, is it a real proposal? Provide descriptions for all the key positions. Again, if you don't have somebody for a job, tell me what you're going to be looking for. 10 years experience, CPA degree. I like to look at two things. One is, what have they done and what have they done lately? We like to know what people's history is, but we also like to know what their successes have been. And again, everybody loves a winner. And so if you've got people with a good history of building companies, selling companies, that's a positive. But if you are looking for people for these positions, what are you going to be looking for qualification wise? But if you already have people picked, what is it that they've done that's going to help your company? I have a background actually in animal science, but it doesn't help me with this. They want to know, what have you done in the last 20, that was, 30 years ago. They want to know what I've done in the last 5 years, not what I've done in the last, what I did, 30 years ago. But all of this, it depends on your particular industry. Our industry moves real fast. If you've been out for 5 years, it's like they left you when you were a child, because that 5 years technology has changed a whole lot. So they want to make sure you've been the people that you're bringing in know what's going on. They want to make sure that they're people that are current in the industry and have been successful in your industry. So if you have, again, if you have people picked, what are their qualifications? What qualified them for the job, or what qualifies you for the job, other than the fact it was your idea? What are you? Why would they invest in you as a person? Tell you the truth, this is the chapter I always start with when I review business plans, because most people are concept, so it's the team that makes the difference. So make sure that you have a good team in place. Now, even if you have somebody that's agreed to work with you, you don't have to put their name in. You can, like I said, you can say name available upon request. The board, if you're a corporation, you're required to have a board of directors, and almost every state, when you set up your corporation, they're going to ask you who your board members are. In Florida, you only need one. It can be the president or CEO if you want it to be. But think about who it is that you would like to have on your board of directors. Uh, Again, don't put anybody's name on there that you don't have permission to. But think about if I was going to set up a recording studio, I might want somebody from Universal. I might want somebody from Guitar Center. I might want somebody from ASCAP on my board, because they're going to be able to keep me up with what's going on in my industry. Because once they agree to be on your board, they have to work on your behalf, even though they may even be competitors. And that's not unusual to put your competitor CEO on your board, because once they're on your board, when they're meeting for you, they've got to be there to support you, not their own company. And some people put, like my wife's company, put people on the board because they worked for Apple, and as a result, they got discounts on Apple products. And so there's lots of reasons to put people on the board. The key thing is they're going to give you support. And again, a corporation must have a board of directors. A LLC does not, because the members are basically the board. So don't tell me I'm an LLC, I don't need a board. I know that. Just tell me I'm an LLC, you might have an advisory committee. Now, the big difference between those two, board of directors actually have liability to the stockholders. Advisory committees, if you don't listen to them, nobody gets in trouble. But if the board of directors, if they give you direction to go in and you don't do it as CEO, they can fire you. So just remember that. And the board has to work on behalf of the stockholders who picked them. Stockholders vote the board in. If your board of directors says, well, I don't care what the stockholders say, we're going to do this, the stockholders can sue them. So there is liability there if you're on the board. But advisory committee, most of those are usually recommended by banks, and they're there to help you. They're usually local people, and they're going to help. They're trying to help you over a problem or something, and but you don't have to listen to them. Now, I can tell you, Small Business Administration usually makes you have one. If you don't listen to them, they do report back to the Small Business Administration. They might pull your loan. So, again, advisory, you don't really have to listen to them, but if you don't listen to them, they can still cause you some trouble. So, just the main difference between the two is liability. Now, you can have a board and an advisory committee, but again, they're going to be two different groups. The advisory committees tend to be local people, where board tend to be outsiders, as well as people maybe from the community. But just remember, you have to listen to them because the way the structure's set up. Stockholders pick the board picks the officers, senior officers, and then senior officers pick all the rest of the people. But the stockholders vote annually on board. If it depends on how you set it up, but you get to make the rules, so it's nice. But the stockholders, if you're the only stockholders, you're going to be able to pick the board members. Or if you're the main stockholder, you get to pick the board members. So you're going to pick people that are friendly to you anyway. But it's not unusual for the board to kick the founder out. It happened to Steve Jobs. He wanted to move to the Mac. The board said, but the Apple II is selling very well. We don't want to do that. And they said, I think in the best interest, excuse me, the best interest of the company, we need to stick with the Apple II. Jobs didn't agree. They fired him, and he went off and built the next computer. But the company floundered afterwards. So the stockholders got mad at the board and kicked them out, and then brought in board members that were friendlier to Steve Jobs and brought him back. But it can happen. So just remember what the pecking order is in a company, and you want to have the right people in the right positions. I like to see an org chart, and that's what that management structure flow chart is. It's a visual representation of who's responsible for what in the company. So you might say, I'm the producer. I have a manager in charge of production. I have a writer, and I have a director. Each of those people have people that report to them. We just like to know what the organization is, because investors like to know who screwed up. And so you're telling them who's responsible for what in the management. And men love pictures. So this is what you're doing, is you're showing them the layout of who's responsible for what in my business. And if it's just you, it's a very easy chart. They still like to see it in diagram form. I'm not sure where in Word it is. It's one of these Smart Arts or charts, Smart Arts or charts or something. There's one of these layouts that it's not charts, but I'd have to find it. But there's a one that you can basically drop in and fill in. That's the org chart. That's the organizational chart. I don't see it here. Maybe it's layout. No, it's there somewhere. I'd have to. I'll look it up and I'll send it to y'all. But there is a link to it. It usually was up on my screen, but it's not there this time. Let me look real quick. No, it's not coming up. Oh, here it is, or right in front of me. Here's org chart, and it's on under Smart Art. You can drop an org chart into your right into your document as a graphic. But those are the 3 chapters that are due. Now the financials, and we'll jump into that. But it's the 2 tabs you're going to do are your monthly marketing budget and your monthly sales budget. Now, the marketing budget needs to match your marketing chapter. So if once you start putting your numbers in, they don't match up, make sure you change the other one to match it. So you can either try to match what you put in your marketing budget, or you can change your marketing budget to match what you put into this, because they need to be close. They don't have to be exact, but they need to be close. And again, rounding numbers is very common in our industry. So you talk about $5,000, even though it's $4,897 that you had. Everybody's going to talk about $9,000. And again, I always use round numbers with investors because it doesn't sound like I'm being too accounting anal retentive, as they said, but they like for you to think in round numbers. So anyway, we're going to do a marketing budget, and then we're going to do a sales budget. And the sales budget needs to reflect what you said your products and services are. So I'm going to show you an example here. The staffing and startup costs, these are going to be done next week. And that's pretty much all that's due next week, other than your mastery assignment. So the last week is the kind of the cruising week. This is the busy week. And then the thing we're looking for is that your company is profitable, because you have to be profitable by the end of your third year for the class. And again, we're really after the first year, you're guessing anyway. But this way you get to guess in a good way, because you're going to have to make enough money to pay your bills and return at least $1 of profit by the end of the third year. And I can tell you, investors won't be happy with you. If you make $1, they gave you $1 million, you make one. How are they getting their money back? Because they don't get paid out of the company proceeds. They get paid out of the profits. So you have to start thinking about the profits and how those are going to be, how those are going to let me pay back my investors. Okay, so I'm going to get out of this. Now the spreadsheet you have, it's going to, when you click on it, it's going to ask you for a password, and that's BPD in lowercase. Once you put that in, this is what'll show up. Now, it's got about a dozen tabs on it. They're going to all show up at the bottom of the screen. If you don't see them, click on the green button in the upper left. That'll take you to full screen, and that'll bring the tabs up. So in this case, you can see it's got staff budget quarterly, but there's arrows at the bottom left. If you go all the way to the left, you're going to find the monthly marketing budget. And so that's the first tab that you'll fill in. The quarterly marketing budgets get done automatically. The only thing you have to fill in are the yellow parts. But the monthly sales budget is the other one that you're going to do. Now you'll notice it says input company name. That all it gets done on the monthly marketing budget, but we'll look at that. But you'll see there's 3 years. And I know when you did Chris's class in finance, you only had 1, but now you have 3. And you need to break everything by months. Now you can have a company that starts at, in August. I don't care. Just when you do your financial assumptions, you're going to say, we're not going to start till August of year 1, and that's fine. Just make sure you tell somebody. But we run on calendar year because most small businesses are either sub S's or LLCs. So you're running on calendar year because that's how you pay your personal taxes. Corporations can start and end anytime during the year. It's up to you when you want to start, but in our case, we just run it on an annual basis. Okay, I'm going to leave this because I'm going to bring up one that I've got data in, and that's Kip Roddenberry. Kip is a staff member who went through our program about 7-8 years ago, and he teaches entrepreneurship in the undergrad. He's a pretty nice guy. He used to put on concerts for all the big name groups, taking care of all their scheduling and everything in Florida and down in the Caribbean. But his goal was to start a business that did pharmaceutical sales conventions, because he said that way I just have to work half a year, because most of their work is done in the middle of the summer. So what he did was this is what he figured his expenses were going to be for his marketing budget for a pharmaceutical sales convention company. Now, when he did his financial assumptions, which you'll do with Bill next month, he said majority of our business is done in May, June, July, and August, which is the summer months, because most of the pharmaceutical companies, they know they can't do anything around Christmas time because the doctors take off. And so they do most of their training in the middle of the summer because they try to make it a family event. So they come in May, June, July, August, September to Orlando. Their kids are off school. They bring the families in. The families go to Disney while the spouses attending meetings. So that was the groundwork he laid for this particular company. Now, he did promote to the people that plan these year round, and you can see from his numbers here. And the idea here is, think about where you're going to spend the money. Now, what he did was every quarter he revamped his advertising. In other words, he was spending $400 every 3 months to revamp his ad that he ran in pharmaceutical trade magazines. Now, these pharmaceutical companies, they would he wanted to change the ad about every 3 months. Now, he ran ads every month, but he wanted to change the ad every 3 months because he didn't want to run the same ad all year long. So he was paying a group $400 to rewrite the ad. Now, the website, that was where he drove them to. So he wanted that to stay fresh and changed and running. And so he had a group paying him $900 a month to keep his website active. And so that was the $900 in here. And just think about it. If you're going to hire somebody else to do this, and you're going to pay them as consultants, not as employees, as consultants, you would use what we call the professional assistants. Now, the rest of them, you can see these are, I like for you to do some traditional marketing. And if nothing else, just budget for it. If you don't use it, great. But if you need it, it's there. And so budget for something. Now, in his case, he was doing print advertising anyway, so it wasn't a big deal. But if you're just going to be an online promoter, that's great, but just think where your first eyes and ears are coming from. And that's what the key thing is that worries me, is that people think, oh, I can go viral. Doesn't always work. And, because they were talking about in music, Spotify said they get 20,000 new songs a month. 20,000. And you think about, you're posting your people's songs, they're one of 20,000 in that month. So how do you get to the top of the list? You got to get people to come in. And think about it, you can promote them on the web, but at the same time, where are you going to find the new eyes and ears? And that's where traditional marketing might come in. Now, in his case, that sampling premiums, anybody who was interested in coming to Orlando to do their sales convention, he'd send them out a packet of material. He had videos on Disney and Universal, the city of Orlando, the convention center, the hotels. They sent him brochures. He'd put them in a packet. He would send them out to his potential clients. Those were the sampling premiums. You might make hats, t-shirts, pens. Think about what it is that you're going to send people so that they'll remember you. And that's what he did, was he sent out these packets of material. And again, every 3 months, he'd go back to his sources and say, I need more stuff. And in most cases, they're giving them for free, but you still got to mail the stuff out. Remember to think about all your costs. Don't, make sure you recover all your costs. But he was buying ads in 2 magazines, because one thing he learned very quickly was that this industry, everybody reads these 2 pharmaceutical magazines. So that's where he placed his ads. And every month, clockwork, he would run an ad, but he would change it every 3 months. So people, when they saw it again, and next time they saw it, it looked a little bit different. But he knew that was the best way to reach his clients. They were scattered all over the world. So TV and radio didn't work. Signs and billboards didn't work. No displays were needed. This magazine was the only thing that they all had in common. Now, on the websites, he knew they went to specific websites too, to keep current. And they went to government websites, but there are universities and stuff that you could run banner ads and things like that on. Those were the online ads. I'm not sure what the other was, but again, he was limiting the amount that he was spending every month. Um, Phone directories didn't do him any good. Advertising specialties or giveaway things, uh, and he didn't really have any of those either. And then direct mail, he found that when he would mail things out, very few people responded. Plus, a lot of big companies, if they don't know where the mail's coming from, it goes into the junk. So he said that didn't work. So the two best ways to reach his customers were print and online ads. So that's and he drove people to his website. So he was spending an extra $4,000 every three months to make sure that that website was new and fresh and different, because when they came back, they like to see something new. I was talking with Giovanni's restaurant, one of the restaurants we like to go to, and I said, your website hasn't changed in 10 years. He goes, yeah, I know it. I said, people notice stuff like that. He goes, yeah, I know. So now he wanted to talk to me about, how can I find somebody to keep my website up to date? Because people don't come back to it if they don't think it's going to change. Unless unless there's something they're going to get from it. And think about you know store store advertisements, new pricing, new products. They're coming back to look at new stuff, and that's really what he found, that his website had to do that. And every quarter he had a group revamp the website. There's always new stuff, new ways to do videos, new ways to do audio, and he tried to put all those into place. Think about what it's costing you to maintain and host the website, because remember, all of these costs need to be accounted for. Now, in a company, anything you do for marketing that promotes the company is usually a deductible expense. It's a fixed expense, but it's a expense that you can write off against your revenue, so you don't get taxed on it. It's not coming out of your profits. Okay, so think about what does it cost for me to keep this website current? Trade shows, again, he was putting them on, so that wasn't a big deal. He was using companies up here to do his public relations stuff, so that wasn't a factor. Now he might have, and I've talked to him about this. He most of your big companies where you've got groups have trade associations. Well, they usually have a vendor membership. So he said, well, I hadn't been doing that. I said, well, maybe you might want to think about that. So this was something that we talked about that he might add later. But think about if your trade target market has a group, you might be able to join that group. Well, think about those members. That's part of your marketing plan. Same thing if you have to meet with them and you take them to lunch or dinner, or even bring donuts in the morning. That's entertainment. If you have to travel to see them, all of those expenses need to be accounted for. So make sure that you do. And I always look for something in this informal marketing if you have to go out and find your customers. One thing about trade shows, think about where your target market gathers. If you've got to go out to a club to look at bands, that can be a marketing expense. One group, which is the wedding shows in some states, they have maybe 6 or 7 bands that'll come and play, trying to find gigs for themselves, because those pay pretty well at a wedding. And he would go to these wedding shows to look at bands, to ask them if they want to record, or he was looking for session musicians for other artists. But in that case, it's all business. And so think about the money you spend to promote your business or to find your target market. Those are things that need to be in your marketing. Just remember to do it for all 3 years. Now you can see that in years 2 and 3, he basically wrote formulas to increase it by 10%. Because he said, I'm not sure how much I'm going to spend until I know after the first year. I'm not going to know how much I'm going to spend in year 2 and year 3. So he just basically increased his cost 10% a year. That's fine. It's, but again, think about when you're going to spend the money. Think what month you'll spend it in. If you're doing Halloween, you're going to spend your money in September and October. August, maybe August, September, October. Advertising in January, what good's that going to do if your store's not open except 3 months a year? So again, think about when you're going to actually spend the money and make sure you put it in the month that you plan to spend it. Now, one other thing. H2 is where you put in your company name. If you put it in here, it'll show up on all the spreadsheets. We have it all linked together. So just make sure you put the name into H2. Now on the monthly sales budget, you've got room for 4 different revenue sources. Now, if you have more than that, you have to you're going to have to combine some things. You can't add more fields. We limit you to 4, and it's just the way we design the spreadsheet. But in his case, he had 4 main revenue sources. They were event production, hourly consulting, because again, some people had their own people. They didn't need him for everything, but they were new to Orlando. And so he would charge them by the hour for him to help plan their events. He had $750,000 worth of equipment, so he would rent it out when he wasn't using it. And then sometimes people would ask him to, make items for the shows and stuff. So he had a separate fee set up for that. Now, once you have your income sources identified, at the table below it is where you put in some information. Now, the first thing is a unit price. Now, with him, he knew that every event was a little different and gets bid individually, depending on how much they wanted him to do. But he said my average revenue was about $175,000 for each event. Some were 200, some were 150, but they averaged about 175. The consulting, he was charging $150 an hour. His equipment rental, he says everybody, he had sound, lighting, stages, tables, chairs. He says everybody rented a different amount. So he just said, I just multiply everything by $100. So he just was trying to figure out, he said they rent maybe $3,000 a month. So he used $100 as a multiple, and then just put in like 30. What you're trying to do is just get to a number. In his case, $100 worked for him. In the merchandise, he had $25 as an average, number. And again, you can use whatever numbers you want in these, but you just need to think about, am I charging by the hour, by the event, by the times a month that I talk to them. All of these you have to decide how you want to bill your time, or how you want to price your product. You think about tickets. It's $10 for a ticket or $150 for a ticket. But in either case, just use that as a unit price, because we're trying to reach a number. I use the example of Taylor Swift. She knows that for everybody who comes to her concert, may pay $100 for a ticket, they spend $19 on merchandise. So you could say merchandise, $19, and then however many people show up each month to a concert. And that gives you an idea of what the revenue figures are going to be. And that's really what we're trying to do, is just reach a revenue figure. Now, the other things you have to put in is commissions and returns and allowances. Now, the commissions and returns and allowances is money you never see. So, for example, iTunes. iTunes takes 30% off the top. So if you have $1 music sale, they send you 70 cents. Now, is it fair? It's up to you. But think about, that's a commission that they're going to take, and that's money you never see. So that's money that never goes into your books. So why do we even bother setting a higher unit price? Because down the road, you may only sell through your website. This shows the investor what you can make. And that's what we're trying to do here, is say, here's the potential to make $175,000. Today, I'm giving 6% away. If somebody refers me, I give them a 6% commission. But again, think about the money that you don't get to keep. That's what we're trying to think about. Who did you pay to help you do this, or did you pay a commission for the sale, or a commission for a referral? But think about money you're not going to get. Now, returns and allowances, that's the same thing. If somebody returns something, you got to give them their money back. You don't get to keep the money. So think about it. It's usually higher with merchandise than it is with events, because again, how many people, if you have a non-return policy, they're not going to get their money back. But you may have one that says, well, if you don't like the show, you get your money back. You're going to be 100% happy. And so you have to think about, how much of it do I have to give back to my clients? And again, you think about, merchandise is always a tough one, because you know that you're going to have misprints on t-shirts, or you're going to have a CD that didn't print right. And so you're going to have to give the money back. But think about how much failure you're going to have of a product or service. You notice consulting was zero. And the reason is because even if they don't like what you say, they still got to pay you, because they hired you for your expertise. So they can't say, well, I didn't like what you wrote up, so I'm not going to pay you. That's not right in consulting industry. Anyway, cost of goods, this is your variable cost. In other words, to put on an event, what did it cost me out of my pocket? And this is money that you spent specifically to do this. Now you notice event production was high, but hourly consulting was low. Because hourly consulting, you're the employee. That's a fixed cost. So how much out of pocket did I actually have? I had to print some things, do some travel. That's cost of goods. That's what I had to spend to get my job done. But in the event thing, what he did was he didn't have a lot of employees. It was basically him and his wife. So anytime they put on an event, they would have to go out and hire engineers, lighting, sound, setup people, and that cost about 75% of that money. Now, if he had employees, it would be much lower. But this is out-of-pocket money to put on the event. But that was the way he wanted to do business. Now, like I said, consulting was low. Equipment rental, he owned the equipment. So the only thing he really had to do was get it from point A, from his warehouse to the location, and then, have somebody set it up. And so his costs were fairly low. Merchandise, in a restaurant, they talk about food is about 35%, labor is about 25%. Well, the cost of goods there is 35%, because you consume alcohol or soda or food, and that's what it costs for you to get that out. Now, your labor, your waiters, waitresses, and stuff are fixed. So you're going to have to pay them whether their tables were occupied or not, or whether they ate or not. Those employees still expect to get paid, so those are fixed costs. We're just talking about what did you have to spend to do this, and that's what I want you to think about. Now, there's some examples in your references section, but in his case, the thing I look for when you go from month to month, and he, on his prices went up. But just remember, when your prices go up, usually your cost of goods go down, because that's a percent of the unit price. So one thing investors like to see is either prices go up or cost of goods go down, because that shows you're increasing your efficiency. So one of the two need to happen, from year to year, because you should be getting better at what you do. You should be able to do it cheaper, lower cost, or higher efficiency. And so your cost of goods will go down. But look at your industry, and again, you're going to be you decide how you want to do your business. But most people, they're going to look for what's ordinary and customary. In other words, what does it usually cost to do something in your industry? And the people that are reading your plan are going to know these numbers. So just make sure your numbers make sense. Main thing I look for here, I add commissions, returns, and cost of goods together. His case, it's what, 82%. That means that for every dollar he makes, he has 16 cents left to pay his fixed costs, which is him, his other people, his wife, his rent on his building, cost of his equipment, and his marketing expense. So you need to make sure that there's some money here that's going to pay your fixed expenses. Then after that, what's left is your profit, and that's where your investors get paid. So where I look for that is there's a tab that's called assumptions. And in his case, you can see the numbers here are minus commissions and returns, and the reason is you don't get to see that money. It's money that never hits your books. So you can see the event, hourly, equipment, and merchandise all get added together, and that gives you your total of your net sales. Then we take out the cost of goods, which was fairly high in his case because he had a 75% event budget. And then what's left after that is your gross profit. In other words, the money that's available to pay your fixed cost. And we're not going to do fixed cost. Well, we do some fixed cost, but a limited amount of fixed cost in this class. But that gross profit is what's left before your fixed cost is covered. If you want to know where that is, if you go to your monthly income statement, that's these expenses. This is expenses you have to pay regardless of whether you make any money. Every month you got to pay these bills under these expenses regardless of whether you make any money up here. And that's the big difference between the cost of goods, which is which is variable cost, and your expenses, which are fixed cost. Because your fixed costs have to be paid regardless of whether you made any money up there. So we want to return, we want some gross profit so we can pay our bills. Now in his case, you can see in January he made $6,000, but he had $75,000 worth of expenses. So he was upside down, or what we call insolvent. So he was $69,000 short that month. Now, and we'll talk about this more next week, but that's 69 is not the cash he was missing. That's something we'll work on next time, is that you actually have depreciation, which is non-cash expense, but it's still in your books. But he was short almost $69,000 that first month. That money's got to come from somewhere. It's going to come from your savings, your family investment, or your investors' money. And that's part of the money we need to make sure we ask for. But like I said, that's next week's assignment. The assumptions, though, what I look for here is, are you profitable? And in his case, his first year, he was not. He lost $500,000. Second year, though, he had $100,000 in profit. Third year, about $1.1 million. So about $1.2 million over 3 years. And if you had an investor who put in $1 million, can you pay him back? And that's what we're asking here. Do you have enough money to pay back your investor? So you need to make at least this needs to be positive your third year for our class, but you haven't got all your expenses in yet. So if you're losing money now, you're in real trouble. And I'll help you get to at least break even. But each time you add more expenses, if you don't add more revenue, these profits go down and down. And again, profit is where the investor makes his money. So in this case, if you paid had to pay $1 million back to your investor, he wouldn't get he would just get his basic investment back in the third year. Because again, if he's giving you $1 million for half your company, he's only entitled to half your profits. So he can only get, if you stuck to the rules, about $600,000 over the 3 years. Well, why would he give you $1 million if you're only going to give him $600,000 back in 3 years? Most investors are going to be looking to double their money by the end of the third year. So again, think about when you start putting your numbers together, make sure you've got enough sales to cover all your expenses plus return a profit for your investors. And again, all I look for is that you're profitable in your third year, but I might make a comment that your investor might have a problem with this because you don't have a lot of revenue, a lot of profit to pay them back. And we'll make sure you're making money, because I know next month with Bill, you're going to add the rest of your fixed cost, because right now the only thing you'll have in there is your marketing and your depreciation and your staffing for me. But when you add the rest of the expenses, you have to make sure you're still making a profit. And that's what we want you to do, is be able to support yourself as well as pay back an investor. So what's due this week? Your operations, technology, and management. And again, use the outline to see what I'm looking for. And then 2 tabs on the financials, just the monthly marketing budget and the monthly sales budget. Oops, wait a minute. So we need to make the numbers used. No, you just need to make sure they match. So if you start working on your marketing budget and you like it, but it doesn't match what's in your marketing budget, go back and change your marketing budget to match this. It depends on which one you want to use, but in either case, just make sure they're the same. So if you find that when you start putting the numbers down that you need $100,000 more than you originally thought, go back and change the financials in your marketing plan to match your financials. Because if they're miles apart, investors go crazy because those numbers need to match up. So like I said, you can be wrong on what you thought in your marketing plan, but just make sure that when you get to the final that the numbers match up. So again, it's not bad. It's just, once you start writing the numbers down, you may say, well, I really need more money than I thought I did. And so you can change either one of them to match, but just make sure that they match what you put in your marketing plan. Okay, well, an hour and a half, that's about right. And so appreciate you getting on here. I'm going to, if you wanted to hear more,